She kissed the wrong vampire prince by mistake. The vampire king smirked. Wrong brother, darling. The crystal chandeliers cast dancing shadows across the marble floors of the Nightfall court, and Seleni's heart hammered against her ribcage like a caged bird desperate for freedom. She shouldn't be here. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but the iron collar around her younger brother's neck, miles away in the dungeon, kept her feet firmly planted on the cold stone. You understand the terms, Miss Thornwood. The vampire advisor, a reed-thin creature named Mordain, peered at her through spectacles that seemed entirely unnecessary for a being with supernatural vision. One kiss to seal the blood treaty. Your brother's debts forgiven, his life spared. Simple. Simple, nothing about this was simple. Selene smoothed down the silk gown they'd forced her into, a deep burgundy that reminded her uncomfortably of the very thing these creatures craved. I understand. One kiss for Prince Alaric and my brother goes free. Mordain's lips twitched. Indeed, the prince awaits in the moonlight gardens, midnight sharp, don't be late, vampires are particular about punctuality. As Mordain's footsteps echoed away, Selene released a shaky breath. She'd never kissed anyone before, let alone a vampire prince. But for Thomas, her reckless, gambling-addicted brother, she'd walk through fire, or in this case into the arms of the undead. The moonlight gardens were aptly named. Silver moonflowers bloomed along trellises that stretched toward a fat harvest moon, their petals seeming to glow with inner light. A fountain burbled in the center, the water black as ink in the darkness. And there, standing beside it with his back to her, was a figure in an elegant black coat. The prince. Selene's breath caught. Even from behind he was magnificent, tall and broad-shouldered, dark hair curling slightly at his collar. An aura of power radiated from him like heat from a flame. Prince Alaric, her voice came out smaller than she'd intended. He turned and Selene's knees nearly buckled. Handsome didn't begin to cover it. Sharp cheekbones, a sensual mouth, eyes that gleamed silver in the moonlight. He smiled, revealing just the tips of fangs. You came, his voice was smooth as aged wine, with an accent she couldn't quite place. I wasn't certain you would. I gave my word. Selene lifted her chin, trying to project a confidence she didn't feel. For my brother. Ah yes, the brother who wagered what he couldn't afford to lose. The prince moved closer, graceful as a cat. You must love him very much. He's all I have left. Something flickered in those silver eyes, understanding perhaps, or pity. Family is everything. I understand that better than most. They stood there in silence for a moment, the night air carrying the scent of moonflowers, and something else, something dark and intoxicating that might have been his cologne or simply the scent of vampire. Shall we get this over with? Selene asked, her courage fraying at the edges. The prince's smile widened. So eager, I thought you'd want to delay the inevitable. I want my brother freed. You want, she hesitated. Whatever it is this kiss seals for your kind, so let's do it. He studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Very well, Selene Thornwood, come here. Her feet moved of their own accord, carrying her across the soft grass until she stood mere inches from him. Up close, he was even more devastating. Those eyes seemed to see straight through her, reading every fear and secret she'd ever harbored. Close your eyes, he murmured. Selene obeyed, her hands trembling at her sides. She felt his presence draw nearer, felt the cool touch of his fingers on her chin, tilting her face upward. His breath ghosted across her lips, surprisingly sweet like wine and honey. Then his mouth was on hers. The kiss was gentle, almost reverent, so different from what she'd expected. No violence, no frightening display of predatory dominance, just his cool lips moving against hers, soft and skilled, coaxing a response she hadn't known she was capable of giving. Heat bloomed in her chest despite his coldness, and her hands came up instinctively to clutch at his coat. For a moment, just a heartbeat, she forgot what he was, forgot the danger, the debt, the desperation that had brought her here. There was only the sensation of being kissed by someone who knew exactly what he was doing, who made her feel precious and wanted despite the circumstances. When he pulled back, Selene's eyes fluttered open, dazed. And that's when she heard it. Wells. The voice came from the garden entrance, deep and rich and threaded with amusement. Selene spun around, her heart stopping entirely. Another man stood there, leaning against the stone archway with casual elegance. But this wasn't just another vampire courtier. Even in her limited experience, Selene could sense the sheer power rolling off him in waves. He was taller than the prince she just kissed, with a build that spoke of lethal strength beneath his tailored black suit. But it was his hair that caught her attention first, pale blonde, almost silver in the moonlight, falling to his shoulders in a way that should have looked soft, but instead made him look like some ancient warrior prince. His face was all sharp angles and harsh beauty, with ice-blue eyes that currently sparkled with barely contained laughter. "Who?" Selene stammered. The blonde man pushed off from the archway and sauntered toward them with the confident stride of someone who'd never known fear. A crown of black metal and diamonds rested on his head, so dark it almost disappeared into his hair until the moonlight caught it. "A crown? Oh no, no. Wrong brother, darling," he said, his smile revealing fangs that seemed somehow sharper, more dangerous than the ones she'd just been kissing. "Though I must say, Cashin, you seem to be enjoying the mix-up." The man Selene had kissed, Cashin, apparently, had the grace to look somewhat abashed. "Alaric, I can explain." "Can you?" The blonde Alaric, the real Prince Alaric, except that crown meant he was more than a prince, circled them both like a shark scenting blood. "Because from where I stood, you knew exactly who she was and what she was here for, and you let her kiss you anyway." Selene's face burned hot enough to rival the sun. "I don't understand, you're Prince Alaric." That devastating smile widened. "Not quite, I was Prince Alaric. Now I'm King Alaric as of 6 months ago when my father passed, which makes this one," he gestured lazily at Cashin, "merely a prince, and not the one you were meant to kiss." The garden tilted beneath Selene's feet. She'd kissed the wrong brother. The treaty wasn't sealed. Thomas wouldn't be freed. All of this had been for nothing. "I'm so sorry," she gasped. "I didn't know, no one told me there were 2 of you, I thought." "Peace," Alaric said, raising one elegant hand. "The fault lies with my court for not being more specific, and with my dear brother for taking advantage of a confused human." His eyes cut to Cashin, and there was steel beneath the amusement now. "What were you thinking?" Cashin had the decency to look uncomfortable. She was so frightened, I thought one kiss wouldn't matter, that she deserved for it to be gentle at least before." He stopped abruptly. "Before what?" Selene demanded, fear spiking through her. "Before what?" The 2 brothers exchanged a look she couldn't read. "Before she learned what the blood treaty actually entails," Alaric finished softly. He turned those ice-blue eyes on her fully, and Selene felt pinned like a butterfly to a board. "Did Mordain explain exactly what this kiss seals, Miss Thornwood?" Her mouth went dry. He said it would seal the treaty, that my brother's debts would be forgiven." "True enough, but did he mention what you'd be sealing yourself to?" The way he said it made her skin prickle with goosebumps. "What do you mean?" Alaric moved closer, and Selene suddenly understood the difference between a prince and a king. Cashin had been attractive, powerful even, but Alaric radiated authority like the sun radiated heat. When he stood before her, she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes, and what she saw there stole her breath. Hunger, fascination, and something almost like anticipation. The blood treaty kiss is a binding little human, an oath sealed in the old magic. Whoever you kiss becomes your bonded, your mate in the parlance of my kind. For 7 years you belong to them, live in their household, serve their needs, warm their bed if they wish it. His lips curved. "You were meant to be mine, and instead you've given yourself to him." Selene's vision swam. 7 years, bonded, belonging to a vampire-like property. "I want to sit down," she whispered. Cashin moved immediately, guiding her to a stone bench beside the fountain. "Easy, breathe." "Don't tell me to breathe," she snapped, some of her fear transmuting to anger. "You let me kiss you knowing what it meant, knowing I thought you were him." "I know," Cashin crouched before her, genuine regret in his silver eyes. "And I'm sorry, truly, You looked so terrified, and Alaric can be intimidating when he wants to be. I thought if you got it over with quickly with someone less frightening." "I'm standing right here," Alaric observed dryly. "That it might be easier for you," Cashin finished. Selene wanted to scream, or cry, or possibly both. Instead, she forced herself to focus on the most important thing. What happens now? Is Thomas still freed? The brothers exchanged another look. The treaty specified a kiss to seal the bond, Alaric said slowly. It didn't specify which brother. Technically, the debt is paid. Your brother will be released. Relief flooded through her, so intense it made her dizzy. Thank God. However, Alaric continued, and that one word made the relief curdle into dread. You are now bound to Cashen for 7 years. Legally, magically, and irrevocably. That is, unless... He trailed off, and something predatory flickered across his handsome face. Unless what? Selene asked warily. Alaric's smile was slow and dangerous. Unless we invoke the right of challenge. Cashen stood abruptly. Alaric, no, that's archaic and perfectly legal according to the old laws, Alaric interrupted smoothly. Which you of all people know, dear brother, since you were the one who insisted we maintain all the traditional vampire codes when I took the throne. What's the right of challenge? Selene looked between them, her stomach knotting. It was Cashen who answered, his voice tight. It's an ancient law that allows a vampire to challenge for a bonded mate if they believe the bond was made under false pretenses or by mistake, which this clearly was. So the king could challenge you for me, Selene tried to process this. And then what? You fight? Not exactly, Alaric said. The challenge isn't physical, it's a matter of choice. You would choose which of us you prefer to be bonded to for the next 7 years. The magic would recognize your decision and transfer the bond accordingly. Selene blinked. You're saying I get to choose just like that? Just like that? It seemed too easy. There had to be a catch. And whoever I choose, I'm bound to them for 7 years. I have to live with them, serve them, all of that. Yes, both brothers said in unison. Selene looked at Cashen. Handsome, gentle-eyed Cashen who'd kissed her so sweetly and who'd admitted to deceiving her, even if his intentions had been kind. Then at Alaric, powerful, intimidating King Alaric with his crown and his ice-blue eyes, and that smile that promised danger and dark delights in equal measure. 7 years with a vampire. The thought should have terrified her, and it did, but it also sent a strange thrill down her spine, particularly when Alaric looked at her like that, like she was a puzzle he couldn't wait to solve. I need time to think, she said finally. Of course, Alaric inclined his head graciously, every inch the king. You have until tomorrow night to decide. Cashen will show you to your quarters. We'll reconvene in the throne room at midnight and you can make your choice then. He turned to leave, then paused, glancing back over his shoulder. The moonlight caught his blonde hair, turning it to spun silver, and his smile was pure sin. Choose wisely, Miss Thornwood. 7 years is a long time to spend with the wrong brother. Then he was gone, disappearing into the shadows with supernatural speed, leaving Selene alone with Cashen and a choice that would determine her fate. A choice between a gentle prince and a dangerous king. And she had less than 24 hours to make it. Selene's assigned chambers were more luxurious than anywhere she'd ever stayed. Hell, more luxurious than anywhere she'd ever imagined. The 4-poster bed could have slept 5 people comfortably, draped in midnight blue silk that seemed to shimmer with starlight. Tall windows overlooked the nightfall court's sprawling gardens, and a fireplace crackled with flames that gave off heat but no smoke, probably maintained by whatever magic saturated this place. But luxury couldn't quiet her racing mind. She sat on the window seat, knees drawn to her chest, watching the sky lighten from black to deep purple as dawn approached. Somewhere in this castle, vampires were settling into their daytime rest. Somewhere her brother Thomas was being released from the dungeons, free to return to his mediocre life of bad decisions and worse gambling habits. And somewhere 2 vampire brothers were waiting for her decision. A soft knock at the door made her jump. Miss Thornwood, it's Ilara, I've brought breakfast. Selene opened the door to find a young woman, human, judging by the warmth of her skin, and the steady heartbeat Selene could see pulsing at her throat, carrying a silver tray laden with food. She had kind eyes and dark hair braided in a crown around her head. Thank you, Selene said, stepping aside to let her enter. Ilara set the tray on a small table and began arranging dishes: fresh bread, butter, honey, sliced fruit, and what looked like some kind of herbed eggs. Real food, not the meager rations Selene was used to. "You're human," Selene observed. Ilara smiled. "I am. I've served the Nightfall Court for 3 years now, 2 more to go on my contract." "Contract? I agreed to serve for 5 years in exchange for my family's land being returned to them. The previous king had seized it over unpaid taxes." She poured tea from a delicate porcelain pot. "King Alaric honored his father's agreement, and I've been treated well here. The vampires aren't monsters, Miss Thornwood, despite what the stories say." Selene wanted to believe that. "Have you? Has anyone ever invoked the right of challenge before?" Ilara's eyes widened. "So the rumors are true. The king is challenging Prince Cashan for your bond." She sat down across from Selene, propriety apparently forgotten in the face of such gossip. "That hasn't happened in over a century. The last time was when King Alaric's great-grandfather challenged for his queen." "What happened?" "She chose the challenger. They were married for 300 years before she passed. She was vampire-born, you see, so she lived much longer than a human would. By all accounts, they were deeply in love." Ilara leaned forward conspiratorially. "The servants are all in a tizzy about it. King Alaric has never shown interest in bonding with anyone before. He's had companions, of course, but nothing serious. And now he's willing to invoke ancient laws for a human he's never even met." Selene's stomach fluttered uncomfortably. Maybe he just wants to punish his brother for the deception. "Maybe," Ilara said, but she sounded doubtful. "Or maybe he took one look at you and felt something the old magic recognizes. Vampires don't do anything without reason, Miss Thornwood, especially not the king." After Ilara left, Selene tried to eat, but the food tasted like ash in her mouth. Her mind kept circling back to the same 2 questions. Who should she choose? And more importantly, why did Alaric really want her? She just managed to doze off when another knock sounded, more forceful this time. "Selene, it's Cashan, may I come in?" She smoothed her dress. She'd never changed out of the burgundy gown, and opened the door. Cashan looked different in daylight. Less mysterious, more boyish despite his supernatural nature. He wore simple clothing, dark pants and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows, and his dark hair was slightly mussed as if he'd been running his hands through it. "I wanted to apologize properly," he said without preamble. "What I did last night was unforgivable. You came here frightened and alone, and I took advantage of your confusion for my own selfish reasons." "Why did you do it?" Selene asked. "Really?" Cashan moved to the window, staring out at the gardens. "Because I'm tired of watching my brother shoulder every burden alone. When our father died, Alaric inherited not just the crown but all the problems that came with it. Territorial disputes, food shortages. Yes, even vampires face famines when humans grow scarce, political unrest. He's been drowning in responsibility for months." "And you thought adding a human bondmate would help somehow?" "I thought sparing him one more duty might help." Cashan turned to face her. "The blood treaty was necessary. Your brother's debt was owed to some very dangerous vampires who were using it as leverage against the crown. Alaric needed to settle it. But I thought if I took the bond instead, he'd have one less thing to manage." It was, Selene had to admit, a surprisingly selfless motivation. And now I've made everything worse because of course Alaric won't let it stand. He's too honourable for that. You were meant for him, and he'll see the mistake corrected. Cashan's smile was rueful. "He's also probably furious with me, though he'd never show it in front of you." "He didn't seem furious, he seemed amused." "That's when he's most dangerous." They stood in silence for a moment before Cashan spoke again. "I won't ask you to choose me tonight, Selene. I don't deserve it after what I did. But I want you to know that if you do, if by some miracle you decide you'd prefer 7 years with a useless second prince instead of a king, I'll spend every day trying to make it up to you. I'll treat you with respect and kindness, and I'll never lay a hand on you without your permission." Selene's throat tightened. "Cashan." "No, let me finish." He moved closer, his silver eyes earnest. "Alaric is a good man and a great king, but he's also intense and demanding and used to getting exactly what he wants. With me, you'd have an easier time of it. I'm asking for nothing but your company. With him, He trailed off. With him what? With him you'd get everything, passion, protection, power, but it would consume you. Loving Alaric is like loving a wildfire, beautiful but dangerous. The word loving hung in the air between them like a spark waiting to catch. I should go, Cashen said finally. You need rest before tonight, but Selene, whatever you choose, I hope you'll forgive me eventually. He left before she could respond, and Selene was alone again with her thoughts. She did try to rest, but sleep was impossible. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw two different faces, Cashen's gentle concern and Alaric's predatory smile. As dusk approached, Ilara returned to help her dress for the ceremony. The gown they'd provided was stunning, black silk overlaid with sheer fabric embroidered with silver stars, cut to fit her perfectly despite no one having taken measurements. Magic, probably. You look like a night sky, Ilara said softly, arranging Selene's dark hair over her shoulders. Beautiful. I look terrified, Selene corrected, staring at her pale reflection. That too, but if I may speak freely. At Selene's nod, Ilara continued. The choice isn't really about which brother is kinder or easier to live with, it's about which one you can't stop thinking about. Selene met Ilara's eyes in the mirror. And if I can't stop thinking about both of them for different reasons? Then you need to decide which reasons matter more to you, comfort or challenge. Ilara squeezed her shoulder. It's time, they're waiting in the throne room. The walk through the castle corridors felt like a march to execution. Vampire courtiers lined the halls, all of them beautiful and terrible, and watching her with glittering eyes. She heard whispers following in her wake. The human who kissed the wrong brother. King is actually going through with the challenge. It won't last a month, poor thing. The throne room doors were massive things of carved ebony wood, and they swung open silently at her approach. The chamber beyond was circular, with a domed ceiling painted to resemble the night sky. Torches in silver sconces provided flickering light, and at the far end on a raised dais sat the throne itself, black stone studded with diamonds that caught the firelight like captured stars. And on that throne sat King Alaric. Selene's breath caught. He wore full royal regalia tonight, black and silver robes that made his pale hair seem to glow, that crown of darkness on his head, and an expression of such complete authority that she almost forgot he was technically the same species as Cashen. Almost. Cashen stood to one side of the dais, hands clasped behind his back, looking every inch the dutiful prince. Between them, in the centre of the room, stood Mordain the advisor, holding an ancient-looking book. Miss Selene Thornwood, Mordain intoned as she approached. You stand before the throne of Nightfall to make your choice. The blood treaty bond mistakenly sealed with Prince Cashen can be transferred to King Alaric if you so choose. The decision is yours and yours alone. No magic will compel you. No force will coerce you. Speak truly from your heart. This was it, the moment that would define the next 7 years of her life. Selene looked at Cashen first. He gave her a small, encouraging smile, and she remembered the gentleness of his kiss, the selflessness of his motivations. With him she'd be safe, comfortable. He'd ask nothing of her she wasn't willing to give. Then she looked at Alaric. The king hadn't moved, but his ice-blue eyes were fixed on her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. There was nothing comfortable about him, nothing safe. He was danger and darkness and a challenge she couldn't quite name. But there was also something else, a pull she'd felt from the moment she saw him in the garden, like recognizing a piece of yourself in a stranger's eyes. Before I choose, Selene heard herself say, I have a question for King Alaric. One pale eyebrow rose. Ask. Why do you want this bond? You don't know me, you don't owe me anything. You could let your brother keep the bond and be done with it. So why invoke the right of challenge? Silence filled the throne room. Every vampire present seemed to lean forward, hungry for the answer. Alaric rose from his throne with liquid grace and descended the dais steps. He moved toward her slowly, deliberately, until he stood close enough that she could see the ring of darker blue around his irises, could smell that same intoxicating scent she'd noticed on Cashen, but somehow sharper, more potent. Do you believe in fate, Miss Thornwood? He asked softly. I don't know. I didn't either. For 500 years I've lived and ruled and never once felt the pull of destiny. His hand came up and she thought he might touch her face, but he simply traced the air near her cheek, not quite making contact. And then I walked into a garden and saw a frightened human girl kissing my brother, and something in me recognized something in you. Call it fate, call it magic, call it insanity if you like. But I want this bond, Selene, because every instinct I have, instincts that have kept me alive for half a millennium, tells me you were meant to be mine. Selene's heart pounded so hard she was certain every vampire in the room could hear it. And what would you want from me, if I chose you? Everything, he said simply. Your time, your trust, your honesty. I'd want you by my side not as a servant but as a companion. I'd want to know your thoughts, your fears, your dreams. He stopped, something flickering across his face. I'd want you to choose me not out of fear or obligation but because you feel it too, this pull between us. That's not fair, she whispered. I only just met you. I know, and if you choose Cashin, I'll honor that choice, though it might drive me mad. His smile was crooked, almost vulnerable. But I had to try, had to ask, had to give you the option of something more than comfort and safety. More like what? He leaned close enough that his lips nearly brushed her ear. Like passion, like partnership, like the kind of love songs are written about and wars are fought over. He pulled back and his eyes were blazing now. I can't promise you easy, Selene, but I can promise you extraordinary. And there it was. The choice crystallized in her mind with perfect clarity. Safety or risk, comfort or challenge, a gentle prince or a dangerous king. Selene took a deep breath and turned to face Mordain. I've made my decision, she said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. I choose King Alaric. The words left her lips and seemed to hang in the air for a heartbeat before the throne room erupted. Vampires whispered and gasped, and Selene felt the weight of 100 supernatural gazes pressing against her skin. But all she could see was the way Alaric's eyes flared with triumph and something deeper, relief perhaps or wonder. Mordain raised the ancient book high. The choice is made. Let the bond be transferred according to the old laws. He began chanting in a language Selene didn't recognize, harsh syllables that seemed to scrape against reality itself. Warmth bloomed in Selene's chest, not uncomfortable, but strange, like sunlight suddenly igniting beneath her ribs. She gasped, and Alaric's hand immediately came to her elbow, steadying her. Easy, he murmured. The magic is just recognizing the new bond. It won't hurt. The warmth intensified, spreading through her veins like honey, and then she felt it, a presence at the edge of her consciousness that wasn't her own. Foreign but not unwelcome. Alaric. Can you feel me? His voice came both from beside her and from somewhere inside her head. She nodded, too shocked to speak. The bond creates a connection between us. I can sense your emotions and you can sense mine. It will settle over the next few days, become less overwhelming, but we'll always be aware of each other now. The chanting stopped. Mordain closed the book with a definitive thud. It is done. The bond between Miss Selene Thornwood and King Alaric is sealed for 7 years. May it bring prosperity to both parties. A cheer went up from some of the assembled vampires. Apparently this was the outcome they'd been hoping for. Others looked disappointed, probably those who'd bet against her choosing the intimidating king over the gentle prince. Selene sought out Cashin in the crowd. He stood where he'd been throughout the ceremony, and when their eyes met he smiled, a genuine if slightly sad smile, and bowed his head in acceptance. No anger, no resentment, just grace in defeat. That small gesture made her certain she'd made the right choice. Cashin was wonderful, but what she felt standing next to Alaric, with that new bond humming between them, that was something else entirely. Come, Alaric said, offering his arm. We have much to discuss, and I'd prefer to do it somewhere less public. He led her from the throne room, the crowd parting before them like water, and through a maze of corridors until they reached a set of double doors carved with phases of the moon. His private chambers, she realized as they entered. The rooms were surprisingly comfortable, masculine and elegant without being ostentatious. A large desk dominated one area, covered in papers and maps that spoke of a king's endless work. Bookshelves lined the walls, stuffed with volumes both ancient and new. A sitting area faced a fireplace, and through an open door she glimpsed a massive bed draped in dark furs. Alaric shrugged out of his formal robes, draping them over a chair, and suddenly looked far more approachable in just his black shirt and pants. He poured 2 glasses of wine from a crystal decanter and offered her one. "You must have questions," he said, settling into one of the chairs and gesturing for her to take the other. Selene had about 1,000 questions, but she started with the most pressing. "You said you'd want me by your side as a companion. What does that actually mean?" "It means you're not a servant, you're not a prisoner. He paused, considering. "You're my bonded, which in vampire culture is somewhere between a consort and a partner. You'll have freedom to move about the castle and grounds. You can pursue your own interests, but I'll expect you at formal functions, and I'd like your company in the evenings when my duties allow." "And the part about warming your bed," she forced herself to meet his eyes. "Is that expected?" "Expected, no, hoped for eventually." His smile was pure sin. "Very much yes. But I'm not a monster, Selene. I don't force myself on unwilling partners. What happens between us physically will only happen when and if you want it to." The bond between them pulsed with sincerity. He meant it. "Okay," she said softly. "What else?" They talked for hours. Alaric explained the rules of the vampire court, the factions she'd need to be aware of, the allies and enemies that comprised his world. He spoke of his responsibilities as king, the weight of ruling a species that was slowly dwindling as humans grew more numerous and superstitious. "We're not the monsters your stories paint us as," he said at one point. "Yes, we drink blood, we need it to survive, but we have agreements with human suppliers. No one is killed or harmed without cause. We're simply trying to exist, same as any species." "I believe you," Selene said, and strangely she did. The bond would have told her if he was lying. She could feel it now, that connection between them humming with honesty. As the night deepened, their conversation shifted from political to personal. She told him about growing up with Thomas, how their parents had died when she was 16, leaving her to raise a brother who'd never quite learned responsibility. How she'd worked 3 jobs trying to keep them afloat before Thomas's gambling debts had finally caught up with them. "You're stronger than you think," Alaric said quietly. "To sacrifice 7 years of your life for someone who's caused you so much trouble, that takes a kind of courage most people don't possess." "Or stupidity." "No, love." His ice blue eyes seemed to see straight through her. "You love your brother despite his flaws, that's admirable." "Do you have siblings?" she asked, "besides Cashan?" "No, just him. He's 300 years younger than me, born to a different mother, but he's the only family I have left who matters." Alaric's expression softened. "I wasn't lying when I told you family is everything. Cashan drives me insane sometimes with his impulsiveness, but I'd do anything for him. Including letting him keep me if I'd chosen him. Including that, though it would have been difficult." The bond pulsed with an emotion Selene was learning to recognize as his, possessiveness mixed with longing. It should have frightened her. Instead, it sent heat curling through her stomach. "I should let you rest," Alaric said, rising. "Dawn is only a few hours away, and you've had an exhausting few days." "Where will I sleep?" He gestured to the door leading to the bedroom. "There, those are our chambers now." The word sent a little thrill through her. "And you?" "I'll take the couch in my study. I don't require much sleep, and I have work to do anyway." Selene stood, suddenly bold. "The bed is large enough for 2 people, and you said yourself we're bonded. It seems silly for you to sleep on a couch in your own chambers." Alaric went very still. "Selene, if we share a bed, I can't guarantee I won't." He stopped, jaw clenching. "My control is good but not infinite, and having you that close, smelling like you do with the bond this new and strong." "I'm not saying we have to do anything," she interrupted, "but I don't want to be alone tonight. This is all so strange and frightening, and you're the only familiar thing I have here, even though I just met you. That probably doesn't make sense." "It makes perfect sense." He moved toward her slowly, like approaching a skittish horse. "The bond makes us seek proximity, especially in the beginning. Fighting it will only make you anxious. So we share the bed, just sleep." "Just sleep," he agreed. The bedroom was as impressive as the rest of his chambers. That massive bed, more bookshelves, a wardrobe that probably cost more than Selene had earned in her entire life. Ilara had apparently already moved her meager belongings here. Her single bag looked comically small sitting on a chair in the corner. Alaric handed her a shirt from his wardrobe. To sleep in, unless you'd prefer a nightgown, I can have one brought. The shirt was soft and smelled like him, that intoxicating scent she was coming to associate with safety and danger in equal measure. This is perfect. She changed in the bathroom, a marbled masterpiece with a tub large enough to swim in, and when she emerged, Alaric had also changed into sleep clothes, loose black pants, no shirt. Selene tried very hard not to stare at his chest, at the lean muscle and pale skin that seemed to glow in the candlelight. They settled into bed on opposite sides, a respectful distance between them, and Alaric extinguished the candles with a gesture, plunging them into darkness. Selene, his voice came through the dark. Yes. Thank you for choosing me. I know it wasn't easy. She turned onto her side, able to just make out his silhouette. Ask me in 7 years if I regret it. His laugh was soft and genuine. I intend to make sure you don't. Silence fell, broken only by their breathing, hers steady and mortal, his slower and quieter. Selene expected to lie awake for hours, too anxious to sleep, but the bond between them seemed to have other ideas. With Alaric close, she felt safe in a way she hadn't in years, protected, wanted. She drifted off with a small smile on her lips. Selene woke to sunlight streaming through windows, and the distinct feeling that she was being watched. She opened her eyes to find Alaric propped on one elbow beside her, those ice-blue eyes studying her face with an intensity that should have been alarming. How long have you been awake? She mumbled, still drowsy. A while. You talk in your sleep. She groaned. Please tell me I didn't say anything embarrassing. You said my name twice and something about ridiculous blonde vampire king with a stupid perfect face. His grin was pure mischief. I particularly liked that last part. Heat flooded her cheeks. I definitely did not say that. The bond doesn't let me lie to you, remember? He reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, his fingers lingering against her cheek. For what it's worth, I think you're rather perfect too. The moment stretched between them, charged with possibility. Selene became acutely aware of how close he was, how little she was wearing, how his eyes had dropped to her lips. Alaric, she whispered. Tell me to stop and I will. His thumb traced her lower lip. But I've been wanting to kiss you properly since the moment I saw you in that garden. Then stop waiting. He kissed her. Where Cassion's kiss had been gentle and sweet, Alaric's was fire and possession and barely restrained hunger. His mouth claimed hers with a confidence born of centuries, coaxing her lips apart and deepening the kiss until she was dizzy with it. She clutched at his shoulders, feeling muscles shift under her hands, and made a small sound that might have been his name. Alaric groaned, rolling them so she was beneath him, his body a welcome weight pinning her to the mattress. His lips travelled from her mouth to her jaw to the sensitive spot below her ear, and Selene gasped. Do you have any idea what you do to me? He murmured against her skin. How badly I want you. The bond between them was alive with desire, his and hers, tangled together until she couldn't tell where her feelings ended and his began. She arched against him, seeking friction, seeking more. But then Alaric was pulling back, breathing hard, his eyes almost glowing with hunger. We have to stop, he said roughly, before I do something we're not ready for. Selene wanted to protest that she was plenty ready, but a knock at the door interrupted them. Your Majesty, Mordane's voice came through the wood. The council is assembled for the morning meeting. Alaric dropped his forehead to Selene's with a muttered curse. Duty calls. Will you be gone long? A few hours. Ilara will come help you get settled, show you around properly. He pressed one more quick, hard kiss to her lips. Tonight we'll have dinner together, just us, and we can continue this conversation. He was gone before she could respond, leaving her tangled in his sheets and aching with want. The next few days fell into a pattern. Alaric would spend his days managing the court, settling disputes, meeting with advisors, dealing with the 1,000 tasks that came with ruling a vampire kingdom. Selene would explore the castle with Ilara, learning the layout and customs, meeting the other human servants and a few of the friendlier vampires. And every evening, Alaric would find her. They'd have dinner together. He'd drink his blood from a crystal glass while she ate normal food, and they'd talk about everything and nothing. He asked about her childhood, her dreams, her favourite books. She asked about his long life, the things he'd seen, the wars he'd fought and won. After dinner, they'd retreat to his chambers, and the careful control they both maintained during the day would crack. Heated kisses on the couch, his hands in her hair, her lips on his throat, right above where his pulse would be if he had won. Every night they'd push the boundaries a little further, learning each other's bodies with increasing boldness. But Alaric always stopped before they went too far, always pulled back with gritted teeth and glowing eyes, giving her space to be sure. "I don't need more space," Selene finally said one night, a week into her new life. They were tangled together on his bed, both breathing hard, and she was tired of waiting. "I need you." "Selene, I choose this, I choose you, fully. Stop being noble and just." She pulled him down for a kiss that left no doubt what she wanted. This time he didn't stop. Making love to a vampire king was nothing like Selene had imagined. It was intense and overwhelming and perfect, Alaric whispering her name like a prayer as he moved over her, inside her, around her. The bond between them blazed so bright she thought she might burn up, their pleasure feeding back and forth until she couldn't tell whose was whose. When it was over, she lay curled against his chest, feeling his fingers trail lazy patterns on her bare shoulder. "I love you," he said quietly. "I know it's fast. I know we're supposed to have 7 years to figure this out. But I've lived for 500 years, Selene, and I've never felt anything like this. Like you." Her heart swelled until it felt too big for her chest. "I love you too, my ridiculous blonde vampire king with the stupid perfect face." His laugh rumbled through his chest. "Are you ever going to let me live that down?" "Not a chance." They fell asleep wrapped around each other, the bond between them settled and strong, and Selene thought about how strange fate was. A week ago, she'd walked into a garden to kiss a prince she'd never met, terrified and alone. She'd kissed the wrong brother and ended up exactly where she was meant to be. 6 months later, Selene stood in the moonlight gardens, watching the moonflowers bloom. She'd grown to love this place. It was where everything had started after all. Still thinking about that night, Cassion's voice came from behind her. She turned to find the prince approaching, a friendly smile on his face. Things had been slightly awkward between them at first, but Cassion had been nothing but gracious, and over time they developed a genuine friendship. "Sometimes," she admitted, "do you ever regret it letting me kiss you?" "Not for a second. If I hadn't, you might never have met Alaric properly. And watching him with you," Cassion shook his head, "I've never seen my brother this happy, so no, I don't regret it." "Good, because I don't either." "Don't you either what?" Alaric emerged from the garden shadows, moving to Selene's side and slipping an arm around her waist. The casual possessiveness still made her stomach flutter. "Regret kissing your brother," Selene said sweetly. Alaric growled softly, "Careful, love, my jealousy is showing." "You have nothing to be jealous of." She turned in his arms, looping her hands behind his neck. "I chose you, I'll always choose you. Even though you still have 6.5 years left of your bond." He tried to sound casual, but she could feel his tension through their connection. This was the conversation they'd been dancing around for weeks. The bond was supposed to last 7 years and then she'd be free. Free to leave if she wanted. Free to return to her human life. "About that," Selene said, "I've been thinking." "That's always dangerous," Cassion muttered, and Alaric shot him a look. "I've been thinking," Selene continued, "that 7 years isn't very long, not for a vampire. And I've heard there are ways to extend a bond, make it permanent." Alaric went very still. "Are you saying what I think you're saying?" "I'm saying I don't want this to end, Alaric, not in 7 years, not ever." She cupped his face in her hands. "I'm saying I want forever if you'll have me. I want to be turned when the time comes. I want to be your queen, not just your bonded. I want." He kissed her, deep and thorough and full of promise, and through the bond she felt his joy, his relief, his overwhelming love. When they finally broke apart, Both of them were grinning like idiots. "Is that a yes?" Selene asked. "That's a yes to forever." Alaric pressed his forehead to hers. "My darling, my love, my perfectly imperfect human who kissed the wrong brother and somehow ended up exactly where she belonged. With you. With me." And as the moonflowers bloomed around them and Cashan quietly slipped away to give them privacy, Selene reflected that sometimes the best things in life came from the most unexpected mistakes. She'd come here to seal a bond out of desperation. She'd stayed because she'd found something worth more than freedom. She'd found home. Ready to get lost in more magical romance, follow for stories that will steal your heart. If you want to watch the full extended stories, join my Patreon. The link is in the description below. Exclusive and uncensored episodes are available only on Patreon. Check the link in the description.